So let me switch this a little bit. Let's say data layer, foo, bar, and baz are products. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write an expectation. And I'm going to seed some data. I find seeding data to be very, very helpful in terms of really getting my application written, and even when I start building out my UI to have some data. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say I expect that I'm going to have some seed, which is going to be an object. And if I look at products, I'm going to have a key called foo, and that's going to point to my Sequelize object. And I'm going to expect the name to equal foo. Now this doesn't exist yet. I'm going to end up getting an error that seed is not defined. Well, where's seed going to end up coming from? Well, I'm going to put a let over here for seed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a before each. So before each is pretty common with testing that says, hey, look, what I want to do is I want to get my system set up. I want to control my system. I'm going to seed some data. And after I end up seeding some data, I'm going to make this asynchronous. And I'm going to have some DB object. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to take whatever I end up getting, and it's going to be asynchronous, so I'm going to wait for it. But DB, I like to call this sync and seed. You could really call it whatever you want to call it. But I expect I'm going to get some object, which is going to have a key of products. And I'm going to have 3 other keys on that for my 3 Sequelize instances. And if I go over here, I'll find DB is not defined. And we can do this relatively quickly here by going in here and saying DB equals require ./DB. And even setting up our Sequelize here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add db.js, a few lines of code, Sequelize equals require, Sequelize. And I'll go over here and I'm going to put in my connection equals new Sequelize. And I'm going to make this so that I could set up a variable, which I'll do a little bit later on for this, database URL, or we're going to say Postgres, and this is going to be localhost, and the name of our database is going to be, let's call it Acme TDD DB. And I'm going to have a method called sync and seed. I'm going to make sure that I end up exporting it. And again, even when I do this, at least my error will end up changing. So once I end up exporting sync and seed, again, sometimes it doesn't end up picking it up, but I have a different problem here. I don't have Sequelize. So let me actually install Sequelize. I'm going to do Sequelize in Postgres. I find that the watch flag on Mocha doesn't behave quite as well as NodeMon works. That's why I'm exiting out of this and installing it. But I'm going to do this, and of course, now I get a different error because, again, nothing's being returned from my seed object. So what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to start setting up my models, and I'm going to say that product con define product, and I'm just going to do this for a moment here, and I'm just going to do name, and we'll go over here, and we'll bring in, let's see, string from Sequelize. Let's try to keep this pretty simple here. And we're going to have 3 products here. I'm going to make this asynchronous. Here are my products. We'll have 3 of them. We'll have a name of foo. We'll have a name of bar. And we'll have another name for baz. And at this point, we could actually set up some variables, foo, bar, and baz. And I'm going to be getting you from awaiting on promise.all. And I'm going to take my products. I'm going to map over them. I have a product, create, product, 2, 3. And I'm just going to return an object from this. So once this is done, I'm going to say that my products, and again, I'd like to do this with keys. It just makes my life a little bit easier here. so that I could just find these by key. So I'm going to send back foo, bar, and baz as products from my sync and seed. And here I get a different error that this connection doesn't exist. So let's go to our Postgres. And this is going to be Acme TDD DB, create database, Acme TDD DB. And let's get out of this. We'll run this one more time. And we see relation products doesn't exist. That's great. We realize one thing I forgot to do here is I forgot to go in here and await my connections sync force true. And now my test ends up passing. That's the first test. Again, I'm able to have some documentation here about how this is going to work, and just to maybe put a little bit more in here, let's go over here. And if we were to do this, we would see that that would fail, but this is going to be bar, and this is going to be baz. And so our test is really what ended up driving the writing of the code.